How's it going, everyone? This is SoulCinched here, and welcome to my review of Battlebots Season 6, Episode 2. There were a lot of heavy hitters in this episode, as well as a few not-so-heavy hitters, but overall, another really great episode. So far, these first two episodes have really set the bar pretty high for this season. At this point, like I said in the last episode, there are a lot of robots that, in these first two episodes, that I could see making very, very deep runs in the tournament if things go well. Now, real quick before I jump into the fights, there's one thing that they mentioned in the episode that I kind of want to touch on. That being the meta, the meta of Battlebots, as well as some of the new designs that are coming in to kind of combat the meta. And this has been discussed in the fandom for a while, though it hasn't really been talked about much in the actual show, so it's really nice to see that. Of course, the meta they were referring to is the fact that four-wheel drive vertical spinners seem to be dominating, which of course, if you look at the 5 past seasons, 3 out of the 5 champions have been vertical spinners, 1 being a horizontal spinner, and then of course Season 1's Bite Force being a lifter grappler. But Seasons 3 and 4 Bite Force, vertical spinner. Season 5's Endgame, vertical spinner. And vertical spinners seem to do very well. However, with this sport constantly changing and evolving, we are seeing new designs and new robots that are coming out specifically designed to counteract these vertical spinners. So it's really nice to see them touch on that. Without further ado, let's just get straight into talking about the actual fights. The first fight was Yeti versus Mad Catter. Now, Yeti, of course, is a beast. It hadn't competed the last season, but they were known for being a very hard-hitting drum spinner. And Mad Catter is a monster this season. They did very well last season, and they look even better this season. They made a design choice to move the spinner from being in the middle to being asymmetrical, and that seemed to be very, very good choice for design, because there were a few hits where usually when you see two bots hit head-on, they bounce off each other. There was a few occasions where Mad Catter rammed into Yeti, sent Yeti flying, and Mad Catter did not even budge. Oh! Yeah, so they showed super, super aggressive driving, really nice durability. I could see Mad Catter going very, very far this year because they just tore up Yeti. And then the next fight was Defender versus Ribot. Defender being a new grappler lifter robot coming from the Vasquez family. And I don't want to say Defender did bad because they did fairly well. They were just going up against Ribot. And Ribot, of course, they went with their vertical spinner setup. And at first, Defender was doing well, pushing them up against the wall, but once Ribot bent one of their forks, Ribot got a few more good hits in, and that was it for Defender. Definitely not the best first look for Defender, but considering who they were going up against, I'd say they didn't do too bad. Another thing I really want to touch on real quick is it's really impressive looking at some of these robots that started off a few seasons ago looking very, very not good, and just seeing how much they've improved, like Ribot, Kraken, Tantrum, Mammoth. It's just nice seeing all these robots that started off as kind of a joke or filler really come a long ways. In fact, the next fight we had Hijinks versus Mammoth. Hijinks having the biggest horizontal bar in the competition. Looked pretty good last season. They're another robot that I kind of like to put in the same category as robots like Tombstone and Deep Six, where it's all weapon and nothing else. And they were going up against Mammoth. How I thought this fight was going to go was Hijinks would come out and use their massive undercutting bar to dismantle Mammoth's wheels, and that would be it. Mammoth wouldn't be able to drive, KO, fight's over. But Mammoth just overwhelmed Hijinks, just swallowing them whole, preventing them from being able to get anywhere with their spinner, and then they used their rotary lifting punter weapon to just get underneath them and get a good bite on them and just kick them away, knocking them up on their head.
These two spinners. Oh! Mammoth puts Hijinks into the screw!
Now, of course, Hijinks can drive inverted, but unfortunately, that hit and the gyroscopic forces created by them flying through the air must have knocked something loose inside of Hijinks because one of its wheels came off. And since it only has 2 wheels, that left them immobile. They were counted out, and Mammoth got the KO. Very, very impressive win for Mammoth. Hijinks, better luck next time. I wouldn't quite count Hijinks out yet because they still have a very deadly spinner. Mammoth just had some great driving and great use of their weapon. And then Hijinks had the misfortune of having one of their wheels fall off. Next fight was Kraken versus Rotator. This is probably one of my favorite fights of the night. I honestly feel bad for Kraken because they keep getting put up against really, really tough opponents. And this fight also had a very weird turn. Now, at first, Kraken looked to be in control of the fight. They got one good bite down on Rotator, and then they never released. And even when the ref was telling him to release, the driver for Kraken was saying he was stuck. He had fully released the jaws, they were just stuck. And Kraken was on fire as well, which honestly, them having to stop the fight, because for those who don't know, if two robots are if a robot is allowed to clamp down and hold an opponent for up to 30 seconds, then they must release. Now, if they cannot release and they are stuck together, the fight is stopped. A team goes in to pull the bots apart, and then the fight can continue. But if they aren't able to separate the two robots, then the fight is called there and it goes to the judges. Now, Kraken was on fire, and in order for them to get in there and safely separate the two bots, they had to extinguish Kraken, which they did. They got them separated, and the fight continued. Now, if Kraken would have been able to separate from Rotator without having to stop the fight, I don't know how long Kraken could have went while being on fire. And at that point in the match, it looked to be all Kraken. Then Rotator got a good hit in, which just completely ripped Kraken's top jaw out. It kind of looked like in a cartoon or something where they punch someone with dentures and their teeth just go flying out. It looked like something straight out of a cartoon. And Rotator just continued to destroy Kraken. In fact, there was one really, really massive hit that sounded like an explosion, and Chris and Kenny both mentioned how that hit was so massive that they felt it in their stomach, but they never really elaborated on what that was. And what that massive hit was just Rotator's blade penetrating Kraken's airbag. Their crushing mechanism is pneumatic powered, and when they hit that airbag, it exploded, making that loud explosion of air. So they ripped out Kraken's jaw, destroyed their pneumatic system, ripped one of their wheels off, and Kraken kept going. Kraken never died. I remember when they fought Sawblaze last year, Sawblaze tore them to shreds and they just kept on going. The durability of Kraken is insane. So even though This fight went to the judges, and Rotator has a horrible track record with judges' decisions. He won. So not only did Rotator win a judge's decision, they won their first match of the season, which is also something that doesn't really happen. So really, really huge win for Rotator, but very, very impressive on Kraken's end to be able to just get completely destroyed and keep on going till the final bell. And then next up, we have Rusty versus Blip. Now, Rusty was supposed to be coming with a new bot this season. Rusty version 1 was supposed to be retired. However, the one-man band, Dave Eaton, wasn't able to get Rusty 2 up and running in time. So instead of sitting out the season, he pulled Rusty version 1 out of retirement. Now this fight, he went in with a different weapon. See, last season, Rusty used this air hammer spike thing, and this fight, Rusty came out with a more conventional sledgehammer, and never really got a hit in. And the robot he was fighting is Blip, which is coming from the same team that created Tantrum. And Blip is a flywheel flipper. They're not pneumatic, they're not hydraulic. It's very, very complex engineering that I still don't fully understand. But from what I could tell, because in the show they tried to explain how Blip's flipping mechanism worked, it sounds like there is a motor in Blip that turns and it's attached to this rope-like device, and when that motor turns, it tightens up that rope, creating tension, and then whenever they want to flip, that motor is released, all the tension releases, which causes the panel to flip. And it looked pretty impressive. The first flip sent Rusty fairly high and sailing across the battle box, and they landed and it looks like that flip, sorry, I'm dealing with like a cold right now, and that flip caused some of the treads on Rusty's tracks to come off, because you could see some debris underneath, and whenever Rusty moved after that, they were very jittery, so that first flip definitely caused damage to their treads. And then 2 or 3 more flips after that, Rusty could no longer move, and Blip won via KO, which is a pretty impressive win for Blip. I personally feel like Blip could go pretty far. They seem to have the speed and agility and compactness of Tantrum, and if they have the durability of Tantrum, I could see Blip doing very, very well. Of course, we'll just have to wait and see what kind of durability Blip has when they go against a bot with a more threatening weapon. Because like I said, Rusty fired its hammer a couple times but never got any hits down. And as for Rusty, well, slap a few more pieces of duct tape on him and keep on going. Really excited to see Rusty next year whenever Dave does have Rusty version 2, and I'd like to see Rusty get a couple wins in this season, and hopefully Rusty will make the top 32 by some miracle, because Rusty is the best BattleBot of all time. Rusty slander will not be tolerated. So, yeah, Rusty is best bot. I'm leaving it at that. Speaking of Tantrum, the next fight was Tantrum versus Malice. Now, Malice came out with a different weapon, and the only real changes they made to their bot externally was that on the back they added this bunny tail to keep the bot from being stuck upright, like how it lost a few fights last season. And Malice did not do so good. Tantrum came out, and in the first couple hits, completely dismantled Malice's weapon, and Malice is the type of bot that all it really has is its weapon. Once its weapon goes down, it doesn't really have much else going. So Tantrum just proceeded to bully Malice around the box using his ingenious punching spinner, which is still one of the most interesting weapons in modern Battlebots because of how they can just have it sitting at the back, spinning up, and then punch it out whenever they're ready. And yeah, they just bullied Malice. They bullied Malice around until that was it. Malice wasn't able to really do a whole lot. Pretty convincing win for Tantrum. And then the main event was Bloodsport versus Whiplash. Now, Whiplash came out with just its lifting arm. They did not have the spinner. And this fight showed amazing driving from both Bloodsport and Whiplash. One of my biggest critiques of bots that have full body spinners or spinners that spin around the entirety of the bot is a lot of times they're poorly driven. They will get driven into a wall and they won't stop their spinner and they will damage it. Bloodsport is very good at shutting down their spinner when they're getting in dangerous conditions and then firing it back up. Bloodsport is one of the best driven I'm just going to refer to it as a full body spinner. I know it's not, but I'm just going to refer to it for the sake of it. They're one of the best driven full body spinners in BattleBots. And then Whiplash is just also one of the best driven robots in BattleBots. And that's really how Whiplash won this by KO. They just kept bullying Bloodsport around and eventually got them flipped up onto the upper deck. Bloodsport was not able to get itself back up. They were not able to get off the upper deck, which led to Whiplash's win. And they said that this was the first real use of the upper deck. I remember in the first episode there was can't remember which fight it was, but there was one fight where a robot got up on the upper deck but was able to drive off just fine. And regardless of the upper deck being there or not, even if Bloodsport was on the regular floor of the battle box, I don't think they would have been able to flip themselves back over. Because that's what happened to them when they were on the upper deck. They were flipped over and weren't able to right themselves, giving Whiplash a pretty convincing win. Though I still think both of these bots are very, very good, and I think both of these will go pretty far. And then finally, for this week's YouTube exclusive, we had SubZero versus Shatter. Shatter came out with its hammer and just relentlessly pummeled SubZero. SubZero's flipper never fired. They were having some mechanical issues. They did get Shatter rammed into the screws and into the wall a couple times. That's about all they could do. Very, very convincing win for Shatter. Now, speaking of flippers, I kind of brought this up on a Discord server I'm in, but I personally feel like pneumatic flippers are on their way out. I could be wrong on this, and this could be an unpopular opinion, but with the retirement of Bronco, we haven't really seen any other pneumatic flippers step up. Last year, SubZero had a very impressive season. However, this year, so far, SubZero in their one match has not done anything. Now, maybe they will improve in their next fight as the season goes on, but so far, they have not done much. And then Hydra also did poorly in their first match, but they have shown that hydraulic flippers can be more powerful than a pneumatic flipper. And then Blip, with its weird flywheel flipper design, allows it to be very, very compact while also being very, very powerful. So, while they were talking about the meta being vertical spinners, we're starting to see a major evolution take place in the world of flippers. So, definitely interesting to see where this goes from here. So yeah, that concludes this episode review of Season 6 of BattleBots, Episode 2. I apologize for the constant coughing and sniffling and all that. I've been dealing with a cold for these past few days. I promise it's not the other thing. But yeah, so I don't feel very good right now, and my lack of energy is probably present in this video. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up this video. Peace!